The past week has not been very kind to the AAA game industry, with Microsoft announcing massive layoffs of many notable game studios. And then there was Sony's, jump into the meat grinder, with their announcement that they are ceasing all physical production of discs for their games going forward. Essentially, in one fell swoop, killing the secondhand market, trade-ins, and just physical media as a whole when it comes to PlayStation. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I've lived through this discussion in the past, and why the issues with going completely digital are still here today, and it's very important, no matter how many gigabytes and other bits of data we have of games on Steam, that it's still nice to have a physical copy here and there. And a double whammy of horrible news, Sony has also, in the past few weeks, announced that they are removing access to digital games from certain titles off of the PlayStation stores, just making it a very great time to be a Sony fan. Now, as we said in the stinger, this is not the first time that this discussion has happened when it comes to this divide between digital and physical media. In the early, late 2000s, early 2010s, there were discussions around the, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era, regarding whether or not we still needed physical copies or physical media when it came to games. This was right after, of course, the tremendous success of Steam, blowing up in 2006, 2007. And there were discussions then about whether or not we still needed physical media when it came to games. Of course, the major points people were saying is, well, if we go digital, games would get cheaper. Yeah, that really happened, didn't it, when it came to the major consoles? And there was this discussion again about being able to just easily download games. You didn't need a disc in there anymore. But in the early 2010s, the internet infrastructure was a very different place. Many households still did not have dedicated internet access. And while there are far more today that have than there were, again, 16 years ago, it still is very important to have physical goods when it comes to games. And there's several major reasons why, and I can also see reasons why Sony is trying to get rid of them. The first is the simple act of being able to trade, sell, borrow, lend, and whatever when it comes to titles. A librarian on social media I was watching was talking about how having physical goods means that, well, you can go to a library and rent and borrow any game that you want and take it back. And this is a very important way for people who are in low-income households and kids just to experience a variety of titles who don't have $80 to $100 lying around each and every week for the latest AAA release. Because I know every 7-year-old right now is chomping at the bit to play Grand Theft Auto 6. Which, who knows, who knows how relevant that may be in the coming months. When we look at the importance of physical goods, this is where the idea of the first sale doctrine comes in, and the ability to sell what you own. That consumers and anyone who makes a product is allowed to get the first sale. You go to a store, you buy it directly from the retailer or the manufacturer, that's it. And for years, we're able to buy, sell, trade books, DVDs, CDs, you name it. And of course, that takes money out of the manufacturer's hands. And why a lot of major studios were very excited to go to digital. And the fact that, again, if you check the fine print, you don't own anything that you buy on Steam, PSN, eShop, XBLA, and so on and so forth. You own a license to download and play it, which means nothing. And this has been the major sticking point for digital goods since the rise of all this in the mid-2000s. That we don't own any of these games. Now, of course, Steam being the monolith that it is and having safeguards in place does make things a little bit better. But at the end of the day, even after all the years and all the discussions, we still can't sell Steam keys. Well, should I say sell Steam keys from our account. Once they're attached to an account, they are locked to it forever and ever and ever. And it's why this discussion about officially now removing physical goods from Sony is such a knife in the back when it comes to the company that really got into the game industry on the account of being the first major platform at that time to be fully dedicated to CD-based deliver, CD-based platform or format for their games. And anyone who knows history knows that it all started because Nintendo betrayed Sony way back in the early 90s. And to see like this happening is such a very weird feeling. And like I said a few minutes ago, what makes this so horrible is that it's not going to affect people like you and I. If you're playing games on Steam where you are fully dedicated to digital, because you can see all the many copies of games behind me right now in this video, it doesn't affect us one way or the other. But it's important when it comes to game preservation to have a truly offline means of being able to play and access these games. And Sony, despite being really quite good in terms of backward compatibility, that was not easy to say very fast, for the first 3 PlayStations, has completely lost it going from PlayStation 4 and forward. And the fact that they can actually control what games you have access to on their own digital stores after you've already spent money is just all sorts of horrible. And as I've been saying now for who knows how long, the discussions about game preservation need to happen. They really needed to happen about 7-8 years ago. But we're getting to that point where even games of the last generation are going to become completely abandonware at this point. Because if they're not available on Steam or on PSN, they don't exist. And if Sony is completely removing like the entire need of having a disk drive or any kind of means of reading physical media on future PlayStation models, that just completely annihilates any attempt at having the history of PlayStation available. And there's no real silver lining right now, which is of course always go for these very depressing critical thoughts. Because as I've said, it's going to take more than just the console owner to fix this. Just like when we talk about Nintendo, you can't just sit here and just say, well, Nintendo will always be good with backwards compatibility, because we all love having to buy our back catalog for every new Nintendo system. And right now, as I'm recording this, who knows what horrible news will come out of Nintendo, because we've had bad news for Sony, we had bad news from Microsoft. What's going to be next for the summer of 2026? And this is going to be a very quick one because this is just kind of a news/ramble piece. But we had the whole discussion last year about the Stop Killing Games initiative. And this again just proves more and more that we need to come together both as consumers and creators to really set some hard lines when it comes to what it means to own a game and what it means to make it available for months, years, or even decades down the line. And as I said a few minutes ago, this is going to be really harmful for low-income households, for kids, for people who want to experience games and not have $80 to $100 or just waiting 8 years for a game to go on sale. And there has to be a middle ground between the ease and easy access of digital with being able to store and archive games. Anyone who does game preservation is probably like foaming at the mouth in terms of anger at this news. And there really is not any, positive outlook, at least on the horizon. So to wrap up our depressing topic for today, it unfortunately I think is going to get worse. And we've talked a lot about how console cycles have really slowed down and changed. And if this is going to be the future for console games, it's going to be a very bleak one for the AA and AAA market. And while this will be a point where it's so easy to say, well, just buy all your indie games, well, it's still going to be very hard to be an indie developer if people are just refusing to buy games and the whole digital ownership side of things. So my question for you watching this, what do you want to see out of game preservation? What are the most important points that you want to see get addressed and developed, and what we can hopefully get done by the end of this decade? So with that, thank you so much for watching. Maybe we'll have a more exciting and happy topic for next time. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the video, do the YouTubing stuff, be sure to visit our Discord and Patreon, and you're interested in more in my thoughts on design, check out my game design books.